Imagine crawling out of a mountain of corpses in a sea of blood, completely soaked in gore, having just crushed a rebellion for your king. Just as you are utterly exhausted, your very soul torn to shreds by the horrors of war, 3 eerie women and a child suddenly emerge from the thick fog. In that moment, do you choose to quietly wait for fate's gift, or do you draw your blade and seize the throne that is rightfully yours? Today, let's talk about a visually stunning film that perfectly blends classical tragedy with the aesthetics of violence, the 2015 adaptation of Macbeth. This isn't merely a tale of murder and usurpation, it is a brutal dissection of the profoundest desires and endless fears lurking within human nature. The story unfolds over 1,000 years ago, in the frigid, desolate Scottish Highlands. As the film opens, there are no glittering palaces, only an endless expanse of mud and a desperate war. In this ruthless world, the Scottish Civil War is raging. The traitor MacDonald, leading light infantry from the Western Isles and a horde of foreign mercenaries, is wildly arrogant, while those still loyal to King Duncan are dangerously few. At this critical do-or-die juncture, with the nation on the brink of collapse, Macbeth, the Thane of Glamis, steps forward leading an exhausted army. The king has dispatched his final reserves, and the outcome of the war hangs entirely on this battle. The battlefield at this moment is like 2 spent swimmers clinging fiercely to one another, neither able to make a move. Yet none of this matters to the valiant Macbeth. Disdaining fortune, he brandishes his steel blade amidst the mud and blood, fighting like a blood-soaked killing machine. He ruthlessly carves a bloody path right up to the traitor. Macbeth offers him neither a handshake nor a farewell. Instead, he swiftly and brutally slices him open from navel to jaw before mounting his severed head high upon the battlements. Unquestionably, victory has been secured. Macbeth emerges as the peerless hero who has saved Scotland. But as Macbeth and his comrade in arms, Banquo, begin their journey home across the withered barren heath, a bone-chilling scene unfolds. An eerie fog swallows the earth, and the air crackles with thunder and lightning. 3 mysterious witches, accompanied by a child witch, block their path. With eyes that are hollow, yet seem to pierce through everything, they hail Macbeth in a bizarre, prophetic manner. Not only do they call him by name, but they also deliver a bold prophecy.
Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis.
Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor.
All hail Macbeth that shall be king hereafter.
My noble partner you greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope. That he seems rapt withal, to me you speak not.
They also leave Banquo with an intriguing, paradoxical prophecy. He will be lesser than Macbeth, yet greater. Not as lucky, yet much happier. He will never be king himself, but his descendants will inherit the throne. Upon delivering these words, the physical forms of these eerie figures seemingly melt into the wind like breath, vanishing completely.
Whither are they vanished?
Into the air. And what seemed corporal melted his breath into the wind when they had stayed.
Just as Macbeth and Banquo are left questioning whether they have eaten of some maddening root and hallucinated the entire encounter, King Duncan's messengers arrive. They bring the king's highest praises for Macbeth's heroic defense of the realm. They then announce on the spot that because the former Thane of Cawdor has confessed and been condemned to death for high treason, the king has stripped him of his title and bestowed it upon Macbeth. In that very instant, Macbeth's eyes tremble with sheer shock. The witch's first prophecy has been fulfilled. Standing beside him, Banquo keenly senses the lurking danger. He warns Macbeth that the instruments of darkness often tell us truths in trivial things to win our trust, only to ultimately betray us in the most catastrophic ways. But by this point, Macbeth is deaf to the voice of reason. A frantic, agonizing tug of war wages in his mind. If this is an evil omen, why has it begun with such a tangible success? Yet, if it is a good omen, why does the terrifying image it conjures make my hair stand on end? Why does it make my normally steadfast heart hammer wildly against my ribs? Here, director Justin Kurzel employs almost suffocatingly dense fogs and blood-red filters. With immense restraint, he visually translates the lust for power from Shakespeare's pen into the literal, psychological nightmare of a traumatized soldier. This overwhelming visual oppression serves as a brutally raw dissection of humanity's descent into darkness. Macbeth writes a letter to his wife, far away at their castle, laying bare every detail of this eerie, temptation-laden encounter. And the moment Lady Macbeth makes her entrance, you immediately realize that this tragedy has become utterly unstoppable. Reading the letter, not a single trace of fear flashes in her eyes. Instead, they burn with a wildly fanatical ambition. She knows her husband all too well. Macbeth has ambition, but his nature is far too steeped in human kindness, preventing him from being ruthless enough to take the bloody shortcut. To seize the prophesied crown, she begins to pray to the darkness. She calls upon the spirits that tend on mortal thoughts to strip away her feminine vulnerabilities, to fill her from head to toe with the most savage cruelty, and to turn her mother's milk into bitter gall. This inner outcry is chilling to the bone and absolutely resolute in its sheer brutality. Not long after, to show his immense favor, the gracious King Duncan arrived in person to be a guest at Macbeth's castle, Inverness. But for the Macbeths, this was nothing short of fate voluntarily delivering a lamb to the slaughter right beneath their blade. In the shadows, Lady Macbeth orchestrated the night's great business. She instructed her husband to beguile the time he must look like the time, to look like the innocent flower, but be the cunning serpent under it.
Glamis thou art, and Kodo, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet I do fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way.
As night fell, a grand banquet was held within the castle walls. During the feast, King Duncan went so far as to announce his eldest son Malcolm as the Prince of Cumberland, the heir apparent to the throne. This news struck Macbeth like a crushing blow. It meant that Malcolm had just become a formidable step in his path to the throne, one he must either trip over or completely overleap. Despite his swelling ambition, at the absolute final moment before committing regicide, Macbeth flinched. Hiding alone in a dim corner, he was ruthlessly tormented by his own conscience. He knew all too well that Duncan was there in double trust. First, as his kinsman and his subject, and second, as his host, who should be barring the doors against murderers, not bearing the knife himself. Furthermore, Duncan was of such a gentle nature, and had been so clear in his great office. If Macbeth truly raised his blade against the king, Duncan's virtues would plead like angels, trumpet-tongued, damning Macbeth's horrific sin of regicide for all the world to hear.
I'll proceed no further in this business.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it is so free?
Agonized, Macbeth told his wife, "We will proceed no further in this business." He confessed that he had no spur to prick the sides of his intent, save for a vaulting ambition that drove him to utter recklessness. But Lady Macbeth had absolutely no intention of surrendering the absolute power that was now just within her grasp. She unleashed an utterly terrifying level of emotional manipulation. Not only did she mock his cowardice, questioning if the hope he dressed himself in was now looking green and pale with fear, but she also mercilessly trampled upon his very manhood. To force him into submission, she swore a vow using the most brutal language imaginable. She had nursed a baby and knew how tender it was to love the infant that suckled her. Yet, had she sworn, as he just had, she would, while the baby was smiling up at her face, pluck her nipple from its boneless gums and smash its brains out. When a person transforms the dread of losing out into an insatiable lust for power, what they grasp is not the scepter of a throne, but a lethal blade destined to turn inward. This is not merely the curse of power. It is the tragic elegy of free will, utterly collapsing in the face of fate. Under his wife's near-manic coercion and seduction, Macbeth's final defensive line of reason entirely crumbled.
I am settled, and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat.
Gritting his teeth, he made his grim resolve. He he dared to do all that may become a man. As midnight struck, an overwhelming exhaustion pressed down upon the castle like weights of lead. Making his way toward the king's bedchamber, Macbeth's hyper-strung nerves finally triggered a hallucination. Staring into the empty air before him, he reached out a trembling hand, perceiving a spectral dagger suspended in the dark, its handle pointing toward his hand. He gazed at this non-existent phantom blade, realizing it was the bloody business ahead that was taking shape before his very eyes. He stepped into the king's chamber where Lady Macbeth had already drugged the two guards into a drunken stupor. The most sacrilegious murder broke open the Lord's anointed temple, stealing the life from within. The deed done, Macbeth stumbled out entirely shell-shocked, still clutching the blood-drenched daggers. Staring down at his crimson-stained hands, a terrifying realization washed over him. Not even all of great Neptune's ocean could wash this blood clean from his hands. Instead, his hands would sooner turn the multitudinous emerald seas into a single sheet of stark red. Lady Macbeth, however, remained unnervingly composed. Snatching the daggers from him, she stated with chilling calmness, "A little water clears them of this deed." Early the next morning, the noble Macduff arrived punctually to wake the king, only to discover the horrific aftermath of the assassination. To conceal the truth, Macbeth feigned an agonizing grief. In a seemingly uncontrollable rage, right in front of everyone, he slaughtered the two stupid guards on the spot, ensuring dead men could tell no tales. Meanwhile, the king's eldest son Malcolm keenly caught the scent of treason lingering in the air. To save his own neck, he secretly fled to England, a flight that ironically cast the heaviest suspicion upon him. And just like that, devoid of any opposition, the crown naturally fell into Macbeth's hands. Yet sitting upon the throne, Macbeth found not a single shred of peace in his soul. He was being ruthlessly gnawed alive by paranoia every single day. He suddenly recalled the witch's words to Banquo, that Banquo's descendants would be kings. Macbeth painfully realized they had placed a fruitless crown upon his head and put a barren scepter in his grip. If this were truly the case, then he had damned his soul and murdered the gracious Duncan solely for Banquo's seed. This was something Macbeth absolutely would not allow to happen. To eradicate the threat at its root, he secretly hired assassins to strike while Banquo and his son, Fleance, were en route to the royal banquet. Deep in the nocturnal woods, Banquo's throat was brutally slit under a flurry of blades, but Fleance managed to flee into the chaotic darkness. When the blood-smeared assassin reported this news at the feast, Macbeth, whose resolve was supposed to be founded as the Rock, was once again cabined, cribbed, and confined by unspeakable doubts and fears. Then, sheer terror struck. In a seat that appeared perfectly empty to all the guests, Macbeth saw the gory ghost of the recently butchered Banquo. He turned pale, trembling uncontrollably. To salvage the situation, Lady Macbeth forced herself to explain away the outburst as a momentary fit from a childhood illness, hastily dismissing the bewildered guests.
Think of these good peers. But as a thing of custom, 'tis no other.
You make me strange, even to the disposition that I own. And now I think you can behold such sights and keep the natural ruby of your cheeks when mine is blanched with fear.
Macbeth knew that he was in blood stepped in so far that, should he wade no more, returning were as tedious as go o'er. He ventured back to that desolate heath, seeking out the weird sisters once more. The witches delivered 3 crucial prophecies. First, beware Macduff, the Thane of Fife. Second, be bloody, bold, and resolute, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Third, Macbeth shall never be vanquished until great Birnam Wood comes against him at high Dunsinane Hill. These three prophecies plunged Macbeth into an arrogant, manic frenzy. Upon hearing that Macduff had fled to England, he immediately dispatched his riders to hunt him down. He resolved to surprise Macduff's castle, seize Fife, and put to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. On the open plains of England, a fleeing messenger brought Macduff the most agonizing news in the world. His castle was utterly surprised, his wife and babes savagely slaughtered. Overcome with near-crippling grief, Macduff was urged by his companion to dispute it like a man. With tears streaming down his face, he roared, "I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. Sinful Macbeth, they were all struck down for thee." The agony was completely forged into fury. With the friendly aid of several thousand English troops, they marched back to ensure that the Scottish fiend Methys end upon the edge of their swords. Meanwhile, back in the fortress of Dunsinane, Lady Macbeth had spiraled into the absolute abyss of a mental breakdown. The very woman who once invoked such ruthless cold-bloodedness now sleepwalked through the dead of night. Her soul was forever trapped in the horrors of that murderous evening.
Out, damned spot. Out, I say. Hell is murky. Will these hands ne'er be clean? No more of that, my lord. No more of that. You mar all with this tarting. Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand.
Not long after, amidst a chilling cry of women, the Queen passed away. Upon hearing the news of his wife's death, Macbeth displayed a spine-chilling sense of nihilism. Staring off into the distance, he muttered with utterly cold detachment, "She should have died hereafter." But fate granted him no reprieve.
I know our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty dead. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. I have almost forgot the taste of fears. I have supped full. With horror's direness familiar to my slaughterous thoughts, cannot one start me.
A terrified guard rushed in to report. The English soldiers had hewn down the branches of Birnam Wood for camouflage and were marching en masse toward Dunsinane Hill. The witch's prophecy had been fulfilled in the most devastatingly ironic way imaginable. With his back against the wall, Macbeth finally strapped on his armor, laughing maniacally to mask his inner terror. At least we'll die with harness on our back. He feared no man, save the one not born of woman.
They have tied me to a stake. I cannot fly, but bear-like, I must fight the course.
That is, until he clashed on the battlefield with the fury-filled eyes of Macduff. Even then, Macbeth remained utterly arrogant. "Get thee back. My soul is already too much charged with blood of thine. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born." But Macduff glared at him with cold vengeance, instantly shattering Macbeth's psychological defenses. Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. The witch's seemingly invincible prophecies were nothing but fatal traps woven out of equivocating wordplay. Knowing that he had reached the bitter end, Macbeth cursed the juggling fiends who told him these lies, for they had completely cowed his better part of man. Yet, the unyielding pride in his bones refused to surrender. Looking to the heavens, he roared, "I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet. Though Burnham would become to Dunsinane, and thou opposed, being of no woman born, yet I will try the last." Blades clashed, and blood splattered across the mud. Ultimately, Macbeth fell beneath Macduff's sword, bringing his sin-soaked and profoundly pathetic life to a bloody close. In the film's final moments, Malcolm is hailed as the new King of Scotland. But who can truly guarantee that this throne of absolute power won't soon spawn the next beast to be swallowed alive by ambition? This adaptation of Macbeth is not merely a brutally realistic portrayal of power and lust. It is the most profound sigh of lament over the frailties of human nature. Through its use of mud, blood, dense fogs, and crimson filters, the film elevates Shakespeare's classical tragedy into a staggering visual feast of desire, terror, and fatalism. It forces every single one of us to confront the insatiable beast lurking deep within our own souls. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. See you in the next video.